With the amount of mistakes I made, I think it'd be pretty reasonable to be surprised that I'm even alive now. But for the most part, there are a couple of themes which most of my mistakes took, and to hopefully give you some insight and maybe sharing these mistakes with you will help you out as well. So, here are the couple of things which I've done many times over the last couple of years, but which I often regret. The first thing is probably taking mistakes personally. The thing that I remember most when I remind myself of that idea is one day when I was sitting at the computer programming something, I got an error message. And all of a sudden, I felt an immense anger and frustration that I got it, and I felt that I have to solve it now. Though there were other tasks which were more important, which I had to do or should have done, I instead focused on that problem so much and was so emotionally affected by it because it was personal. It was like I was insufficient because of it that I continued doing that task for hours without getting to other work. And afterwards, I felt tired, I was frustrated, and I didn't even solve the problem. So this story repeated many times over the years for me, especially when there would be some kind of mistake which could have been reflected on me. So, for example, on YouTube, I've made many such mistakes, such as when I'm making some word fault, speaking incorrectly, and so on. But all of these things I took personally. I thought that they were my mistakes. I messed up. And I think that one of the biggest causes for why that was for me was that I instantly judged what I did. Rather than giving myself some opportunity to wait and allow myself to learn, I immediately thought, okay, if you're not doing this right already, you're failing, you're a loser, you shouldn't even do this. I had that attitude that I have to do it right the first time or not do it at all. In YouTube, especially, in programming, oftentimes, and in life in general. I think that I learned that at school, and I thought, if I don't get an A, I'm basically failing already. So I applied that idea in other parts of my life, and naturally, it didn't work out so well because I would always misprioritize my activities and work on things that I didn't want to work on. So it might not seem that big of a problem, but there are certain negative effects which I'm sure you can relate to in some ways. The first one is a sense of learned helplessness. That's a term that is used in psychology, but which I've experienced quite significantly when I took my mistakes personally. It is the increasing belief that whatever I do, any attempt to fix the problems I have is futile, that it's impossible to fix my problems. One of the best illustrations I remember of learned helplessness, that idea, was of an elephant. When elephants in a circus are very small, young, they are tied with a rope to a tree or a stump of some kind. And because they're so small, because they're so incapable of fixing their problem and trying to get out, well, then they fail to escape that rope. They fail to escape from that situation. And when they grow older and stronger and could easily remove and destroy that rope and run away, they no longer do it because they've remembered from their early childhood, from their earlier past, that it's impossible. And when I heard that story, when I heard that metaphor describing how learned helplessness works, I felt that in many areas of my life because I was sure that there were areas where I did something, I failed earlier on, and since then I simply believed I could not do it. But just like those elephants, over time we grow, we learn new things, and we are capable of doing more. So when I took the mistakes personally, and when I thought they were somehow a mark on my character, something which diminishes my value, I was in fact mistakenly attributing that idea of learned helplessness to myself, and I was undermining my work. It wasn't until much later, when I learned about a couple of different ideas, when I began to overcome that sense of personal hurt whenever I made a mistake. And the solutions that I got to were, the first one was that mistakes are not indications of my low self-worth, and low value as a person, but they're simply signals that something needs to be fixed. When I stumble, it isn't an indication that I'm a loser and I will never make anything good in my life, but that I stumble and therefore maybe there's some ability, some speech ability that I need to learn in order to improve that problem, in order to remove it even. So, making these huge assessments, huge judgments, I failed on this quiz or I failed on the last three quizzes, therefore I'm not good at this subject in general, maybe going too far, maybe being too generalistic. So, narrowing down the context within which I failed down to the very scientific and specific problems rather than the general ideas which it indicates is much better. And the second thing, once you've found the specific context for the problem, for the little mistake you made, for the little inadequacy you're feeling, it's to, for me at least, it's to be more scientific about improvement. So rather than thinking, oh, okay, another problem or another issue, I just can't really do this anymore because there's so much of it, rather than really attaching any emotions to the process, just think, okay, problem one, how do I fix it? Generate a couple of solutions, try to fix it, and leave it for later. Problem two, and so on and so forth, like an assembly line for problem solving, which you're a part of. That was a way that I found to be useful in feeling less attached to every problem I have and every mistake I make. So rather than when I see a video that wasn't the best, I don't think, oh God, another one, I'm such a failure. Rather than thinking that, I think, okay, two things. What are the two biggest insights I can get from this? Trying to be productive about it, trying to gain some value out of it. So let me tell you what my ideal for not taking mistakes personally is. I remember watching Pulp Fiction and I saw the wolf in there, and I believed he was such a professional and organized person because, he just went straight to the problem, didn't even consider any emotional slights he might have experienced or other difficult circumstances. He just went straight for it. So that's kind of the attitude that I want as well, which is to look at the situation, find the flaws, find the good parts, and to simply continue and progress from there, rather than looking and judging and thinking how it means something, what it means that I failed on this quiz, it means that I'm a loser, it means I'm this, I'm that. Not making judgments, just getting to work. That's the ideal. Now, the second problem, and that's the second huge problem, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, is the fear of change. The fear that if I change something, if I try something new, it will have some kind of harm on me. Now, the first story I remember of that experience was when I was starting YouTube and I was trying to make some interesting animation slash conversation video, but I felt completely demotivated about it because I felt, oh, what if I embarrass myself? What if I'm not really that good at it? And this feeling, this fear, was stopping me from doing it for so long that looking back over the last year, it has taken up a lot of my time, which I could have spent effectively otherwise. So, this example and others like it, situations where I could have been more proactive and tried different opportunities, but instead I hid behind myself and didn't do anything, are something that are often regretted by me. Now, I think the negative effects of this are pretty obvious because when I didn't take the opportunities which I could have, I immediately felt a sense, or a couple of days or months later, I felt the sense that I wasted a great deal of potential happiness, a great deal of potential enjoyment from my life. That's not a good feeling to have. So let's consider the causes and what solutions there could be to that. Now, the causes, the first one was for me a lack of broader picture. So when I look at a change that I'm making, over time, in the next 3 days, if I added a new activity, an innovative activity into my day, it wouldn't really change anything. Maybe it would even make me feel worse. So there'd be a dip in my happiness, which doesn't really motivate me to continue. But over time, these kinds of changes, and especially if I make more of them, can progress and accumulate such that my progress is going exponentially rather than flopping and not really changing at all. So it's very important to see the big picture when you have fears, when you're unsure what results your actions will have. My way of doing that, and it was actually something that I found without even knowing at first, was reading different biographies, listening to different people, especially people like Lincoln, especially people like Nelson Mandela, and people whom I admire, because once you see their life, their whole life, and how they spend 70, 80 years of their existence, you realize that certain decisions you make early on, so for example, Lincoln could have decided to be more pro-social or less, be more empathetic to others or not, but because he decided that, over the years, different decisions compounded, all because of that one result, which made him president, which made him a person who is admirable and admired. So looking at a broader context and thinking of your ideas over years or decades even is what allowed me to be a bit more disciplined in choosing the right options, the options that will bring me benefit over the long run. And now the ideal here, my ideal for how I'd like to deal with the fear of change in the future, is to always take all my fears, deconstruct them, consider why am I feeling this way, and seeing the broader picture, and then always trying new methods at work, in my personal life, and so on. Because I have a strong conviction that continual adaptation and trying new things, that kind of self-improvement, so to speak, is the way that you can, over a long time, improve your character such that you can actually become a person that you find admirable or you'd like to be. So that is my attitude here. That is the ideal. So the fear of change and taking mistakes personally were the two biggest things that determined the last 2 years of my life. Now, the thing that I want to do is to prevent them from doing so again by different behaviors and different changes and keeping to the goal that I can change. So I hope you were with me along on this and you saw a bit of that in your own life so that you can fix it as well. I hope you had fun, and for now, bye.